He swore he was divorced. Then I found their anniversary photos. I turned his lies into evidence, gave her the truth, and watched his world collapse while I walked away clean. Here's how I planned it. He told me he was divorced the same week he held my hand in a grocery store aisle and asked which ice cream I liked. 2 months later, I learned it was their anniversary, hers and his. My name had become the secret he hid behind bad mental health. His lie burned hot enough to keep me awake for days. So I did what hurt girls do when they're done being fooled. I turned the lights on. If you believe in receipts over rumors and justice over silence, hit like and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that truth has teeth, and that, sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is stop protecting the wrong person. Ready? Let's begin. I didn't meet her first. I met him. It was January when I met his wife. Months after he and I had already been friends. Before that, it was just him and me and a rolling friendship that stretched over 3 years of group chats, coffee after work, and the kind of inside jokes that start as pebbles and end up feeling like towers. We were the dependable two, texting each other at 2 a.m. about deadlines, tagging each other in dumb memes, swapping recipes we'd never cook. He had this comfortable brokenness, like a window stuck slightly open. You don't notice the draft until winter. When I finally met his wife, she pressed herself to him like a warning label. Her arm didn't just rest around his. It claimed it, a quiet no you could read in the way her fingers drew circles on his wrist. He smiled apologetically at me, as if saying, she gets anxious. But I saw the way she scanned my face, measuring whether I was pretty or harmless or both. That I decided to be harmless. That felt like the safest color. That we hung out as a trio a few more times. Her laugh loud and brittle, his eyes flicking to me after every joke like we shared a frequency she couldn't hear. Then the invitations slowed. Then they stopped. My messages to him shrank from comfortable paragraphs to careful one-liners. You good? How's work? Saw this and thought of you. He'd reply late. Sometimes not at all. In April, he texted, can I call? The call was 2 minutes. Maybe less. Hey, he said, voice emptied out. We're divorced. Silence pressed on my ear like a palm. Oh, I said, too softly. I didn't know. We kept it quiet. His breath caught. She, didn't want me hanging out with female friends. You know how it was. Anyway, it's done now. I imagined 2 signatures sliding past each other on a courthouse table. I pictured him alone in his car afterward, cemetery quiet. I pictured the window and him forced all the way open. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. Me too, he whispered. But maybe it'll be good. Clean. You know, clean. The word felt like a promise we both wanted to believe. I told myself we were okay to be friends again. He offered to grab coffee the next day, no wife attached, and I didn't have to prepare my harmlessness like armor. That we started to hang out. Not dates, not yet. Just the small, unremarkable intimacy of errands and couch movies and taking turns picking playlists. He asked which ice cream I liked in the grocery store, and I laughed because it was the first time in ages someone asked my favorite anything. He bought both of the flavors I named. We can taste test, he grinned. For science. June came, and he asked me out. Like an actual date, he said, pinching his bottom lip like he was nervous. If you want. I was freshly clawing my way out of a breakup that had sandpapered my confidence to the grain. The idea of someone wanting me felt like shade after a hard noon. I said yes, because I wanted to feel chosen, even if only carefully. We went to a mid-priced place with string lights and brick walls that knew stories. He looked at me like he was seeing an answer to a question he hadn't dared ask. We kissed in my car, the windows fogging, my heart tripping, and I remember thinking, this is allowed now. This is fine. The divorce made it okay. He had said so. He had said the word divorced like it was a closed door. The weeks that followed tasted like borrowed summer. Sleepovers with Netflix and half-watched movies. He was sweeter than any man I'd known. Soft hands in my hair. Soft apologies if my eyes got quiet. Soft admissions about feeling off or low. He confessed he'd been struggling. Work pressure, money fears, sleep that refused to hold. Bad mental health, he said, almost angrily, like naming it might make it leave. Of course, I said. I knew that landscape. I didn't run. I tucked the blankets. I brought tea. I turned off my phone when he trembled and said he felt too washed by everyone and everything. When he spent the night, he put his phone screen face down and never plugged it in. I didn't think much of it. When he left my place at 6 a.m., To get a head start, I smiled sleepily and dozed again. When he flinched at the sound of a message and said, "Spam." Sorry. I gave him that trust we give to the people we like, because trusting is more pleasant than inspecting. I could have stayed in that soft, stupid summer forever if not for the calendar. I'm not a big date person. I don't remember birthdays. I mark time by songs and weather. But that day, I opened my phone to silence. He'd been quieter than usual all morning. A slow drag of busy today, sorry text that felt like you're not wanted at a party you didn't ask to attend. I told myself not to be clingy. I put my phone in the other room. I cleaned the kitchen just enough to be proud of it. Then my acquaintance, someone who runs in the same social media circle as his wife, posted a story. Two champagne flutes. A caption, "Happy anniversary to two of the kindest souls I know." Her and him. Tagged. Anniversary. Anniversary. I stared at the word until it emptied itself of meaning. The flutes were skinny, the bubbles already thinning, a faceless celebration. Maybe it was an old story reposted. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were the kind of exes who celebrated the day they met anyway, because cocktails are cocktails and grief is weird. I clicked through. A photo of a card on a table. To my forever friend. Same tags. Same two names. The date stamped at the bottom, mocking me. June. Today. My stomach did that elevator drop. The one that feels like your organs just forgot their job. I scrolled back through my messages to April. We're divorced. I scrolled forward to June. Actual date? If you wanted, I stared at my ceiling. The room had the flat air of somewhere that just heard bad news. I texted him. "How's your day?" He replied 30 minutes later. Weird. Kinda down. Might go off grid. My heart, a fist. My throat, a small, irritated thing. Is today important? I typed, then deleted it. I typed, "Anything I can do?" He said, "Just need rest." It was the word rest that made anger start drawing its first circles in me. Rest implies earned tiredness. Rest suggests honesty. Rest says, I carried a load and now I put it down. I wasn't sure what to call what he was doing, but it wasn't rest. That evening, I waited for him to show up for the movie we'd planned. He didn't. I waited for the apology text. It arrived, sorry. Rough day. Head's dark. I let that be the last time I protected his reputation to myself. Sometimes you don't need proof. You need a line. And my line had just formed itself. I opened my laptop, hands shaking so hard I mistyped my password twice. I pulled up public posts. Their tags. Her profile. His. I took screenshots like a notary. Save. Label. Timestamp. Anniversary. Forever friend. Love you always. I found photos of a dinner. Tonight's specials in the corner gave it away. He looked happy. He looked occupied. He looked married. My mouth filled with that metallic taste grief gives you. I swallowed it like a coin. At midnight, he texted, "Can I call?" I put my phone on silent and watched the caller ID jitter across the glass. He was not divorced. He had never been divorced. The door he claimed had closed was a closet he was hiding me in, and in that quiet, one thought unfolded like a contract. I'm not going to be the reason she finds out, but I might be the reason he does. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling like it might answer me. That thin ribbon of rage kept climbing, tripping over ribs, threatening to burst. The temptation to call her, his wife, curled inside me like a lit match. But there's a difference between telling the truth and starting a fire in someone else's living room. If I told her tonight, this moment, I'd be making their anniversary the day of discovery. I'd be smashing cake on the floor of their life. I didn't want my anguish to be the point of her pain. I waited. I made tea I didn't drink. I opened a blank note on my laptop and titled it, Timeline. If you can name each step, you can stand outside of it. That's what I've learned about pain. Detail makes it smaller. I wrote. January. Met wife. Tension. April. He said they were divorced. Call lasted 2 minutes. Save call log. June. He asked me out. Screenshots. Today, their anniversary. Posts tagged. Photos. Dinner specials. Screenshots. Then I opened a second note. Evidence. I copied links. I saved images. I applied the cold patience usually reserved for tax season. Check. Label. Folder. His late night messages. Bad mental health. Going off grid. Need rest. Went into a subfolder called Cover Stories. A petty name. Yes. But I was building a case for myself as much as against him. If I ever started to doubt what I was doing, I wanted a neat dossier reminding me WHY at 2 a.m., he called again. Then again. 3 missed calls, 1 voicemail, the kind that can't wait. Hey, I'm sorry about today. It's been a lot. I don't know. I don't want to be like this. Please don't be mad. Mad. That small word. As if my anger were an overreaction to a door ding that I typed. Let's talk tomorrow. Sent. Threw my phone onto the couch like it might bite me. When dawn softened the edges of the buildings across from mine, I made a decision. A clean one. I would not be his punishment. I would be his mirror. He could pick what to do with his reflection. I texted him. I'm free at 6. Come by. He replied instantly, as if he'd been holding the phone like a life preserver. Yes. I'll be there. The day was endless. I tried to work, failed, put on a podcast, turned it off, swiped through 6 different apps, as if any of them could give me a piece of myself back. My heart did that humiliating thing where it keeps finding reasons to forgive someone. Maybe he's separated and doesn't know how to say it. Maybe the anniversary is just a ghost ceremony. Maybe. At 5:59 p.m., there was a knock. He stood in my doorway with a face so carefully arranged it was practically a mask, remorse layered over fatigue, concern arranged in neat lines. Hey, he said. Soft. Hey. I said, knocked. He stepped in like he always did. Keys in the bowl, shoes by the wall. He reached for me, and I stepped back. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion. Then something colder. Calculation. Not a good sign. Rough day yesterday, he started. I'm sorry. My head. Save it, I said gently, because this wasn't going to be a scream. Screaming gives the other person a role. I wanted him off script. He blinked. Okay. We sat. Close, but not touching. The space between us felt like the mouth of a cave. I have a question, I said, and I want you to answer it in 1 sentence. He nodded, the mask slipping just a bit. Are you divorced? His mouth opened. Closed. He ran a finger along his jaw, a move I'd come to recognize as a stalling tactic. He exhaled. It's complicated. 1 sentence, I repeated. We are working through it, he tried. Another non-answer. The kind of politician would be embarrassed to give. I let the silence be a brand I pressed to him. He swallowed. I saw the anniversary posts, I said. From yesterday. His eyes flicked left, toward where his phone would be if I'd let him keep it in his hand. He'd trained himself to look for exits. She posted that without asking me, he said quickly. We're not. It's not what it looks like. We're basically done. Basically. In law or love. Basically is the absence of a fact. Show me the divorce decree, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Or the legal separation. Or the filing. I'll take a number. He sagged. The truth made his shoulders look older. I don't have it, he said. Because you haven't filed. He rubbed his eyes. Because I've been struggling. I told you. I'm not. You told me you were divorced, I said, and there it was, the surface tension breaking. You used that word. You looked me in the face and used it. He reached for my hand then, reflexive, as if connection might make the lie smaller. I didn't want to lose you, he said. That sentence always sounds like love when you're 20 and stupid. At 30, it sounds like theft. You didn't want to lose either of us, I said. And you wanted me ignorant enough to keep. He flinched. I often imagine the exact weight of that moment, how heavy it was to him to be known. My apartment was quiet enough that I could hear my upstairs neighbor's dishwasher end its cycle. That was the sound of something done, finished, wrapped. He started crying then. Softly at first, like he was auditioning tears. I watched without moving. Not because I'm cruel, but because you can drown yourself trying to save someone who's learned to use water as leverage. I'm sorry, he said. I should have said separated. You should have said the truth, I said. To me. To her. Pick a person and start there. He nodded, and for a second, that fragile mercy second, I believed he would. He reached for his phone. I thought he's going to call her. He opened his messages instead and typed something I couldn't see. His hands shook. Shame or strategy? Hard to tell. Who are you texting? I asked. My therapist. He lied, a lie so clumsy it embarrassed us both. Put your phone down, I said quietly. He did. For the next hour, I became the worst version of myself, the lawyer I'd never been trained to be. I asked dates, times. Who knew about me? Who didn't? Did his wife suspect? Had he slept at her place the night before our first date? Did he still have a dresser drawer there? He answered with half phrases. each a broken rib of something that used to be honest. He had reasons. It was easier. She gets jealous. I thought we were done. We've been off and on. He had a dozen words for cowardice and none for respect. He left with his face puffy from crying and a promise to handle it. He kissed my forehead. I let him because I needed to see exactly where the lie ended. The answer? His lips. That's where it ended. His mouth could say anything to anyone. His mouth was a thief. After he left, I sat at my table and shook. Not the dramatic kind, not sobs. Just my hands, my body, as if it needed to tremble to make room for what came next. Because something had broken quietly inside me during that conversation, and the sound it made was not hurt. It was resolved that I texted him, one final courtesy. You have 12 hours. Tell her the truth. Then tell me you did. Or I will. He didn't reply for a long time. When he did, it was nearly midnight again. Please don't. I'll do it tomorrow. I promise. Promises from him had the lifespan of fruit in summer. 2 days, if refrigerated, at 7 a.m. I woke to a message from a mutual friend. Hey, saw him and his wife out early. Looked cozy. Did you guys break up? Hope you're okay. My stomach clenched. Cozy. The smallest word, the biggest insult that I called him. He didn't answer that I texted. Did you tell her? He replied, working up to it. She's not in a good place. I'm worried about her mental health. Oh, there it was. The weaponization of worry. He'd mounted her fragility on the wall between him and accountability, and he was hoping I'd see it and go still that I stared at his message like it was a stranger speaking a language I used to know. Then I replied with the only sentence I had left. You have until noon. I started printing. Screenshots. Dates. I printed them like I was preparing to submit to a journal. I put them in order, even added a small index, because neatness is a kindness, even to the person you're about to ruin. I drafted a letter. I made it 2 paragraphs, no more. The first told my side. The second told the truth. No adjectives for him, no slurs for her. Just light on a dark corner, AT 11:52. He texted, don't do this. At 11:59, he called that AT exactly noon. I turned my phone to airplane mode. Because here's the thing. Some people hear the truth as violence. They will call your boundary a knife while they hide their blade in their shoe. I wasn't going to cut him. I was going to expose him. And it turns out exposure, for men like him, feels very much like an ending. She lived 10 minutes away in a house with dark blue shutters and a porch swing that looked like it hadn't been used since the spring. When I walked up the steps, the wood gave that tiny warning creak old houses give, like they're clearing their throats before introducing you to a truth. I knocked at noon. The door opened. She was holding a photo frame flat. Against her chest, one of those candid wedding pictures where the photographer catches 2 people laughing right before they realize the rest of their lives are about to begin. Her face didn't look like the face in the picture. It looked sharper, like she'd been filing it against something hard for a while. I know who you are, she said, not unkindly. Come in. No screaming. No flinging. No shoulder checking. Just an invitation. That was almost worse. Rage I could have handled. Grace makes you careful. The inside of their house was precise. Not sterile, lived in, but organized the way a person organizes when they're afraid of chaos. A basket for keys. A tray for mail. Matching mugs. A handwritten list on the refrigerator that said Monday, trash, Tuesday, plants, Wednesday, call insurance. Domestic evidence. She put the frame on the coffee table. I was waiting to see if you'd show up, she said. An SAT@MY rehearsed speech scattered like birds. How did you know I was coming? She shrugged. I'm not stupid. And when someone's been off for months, you learn their rhythms. He gets quiet right before a lie. He gets talkative right after one. And he has a tell for being caught. What's his tell? I asked, reflexively curious despite the gravity around us. He says the word complicated when he means cornered, she said. I nodded. She moved toward the kitchen, and I stood there with my folder of evidence like a woman about to pitch for a grant. My hands had stopped shaking. That surprised me. It shouldn't have. Clarity is a sedative. She returned with 2 mugs and a plate of shortbread cookies, like we were having a neighborly chat, and in some way we were, neighbors in the same disaster. I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward her like I was passing a note in class. She didn't open it. Tell me your timeline, she said that I did. April is 1-sentence call. We're divorced. June, our first date. The sleepovers. The phone face down. The late-night apologies. The anniversary post. I told him last night, I finished, that he had until noon to tell you. And if he didn't, I would. Airplane mode at noon. She asked, eyes tilted with something like humor. On the dot, I said. She nodded like we'd just synchronized watches. Then she opened the folder. Her face didn't change as she turned pages. It didn't need to. Each screenshot changed the room. At the dinner photo from last night, she made a small sound that wasn't pain or surprise. It was recognition. Like when you hear a car's engine click and know exactly what part needs replacing. He told you he was divorced, she said, tapping the April transcript. He told me he was depressed. I don't disbelieve he is, I said. I just disbelieve the way he used it. She set a page down gently. He used it to get me to accept less. And to get you to accept anything. She exhaled through her nose. He's been going to counseling. He said it was for grief. Then, somehow, I was grief. We sat with that. Today is your anniversary, I said quietly. She let out a laugh that sounded like it hurt. It is. It was. Last night, he asked me out to breakfast to reset. We ordered French toast. He held my hand across the table. He said he wanted to rebuild. Rebuild. Basic vocabulary of men who have never mixed cement. She took a cookie, didn't eat it, put it down. I'm not here to fight you, she said. I think you thought you were coming to fight me. I did, I admitted. Or at least to show you I'm not the cartoon villain he probably implied. The other woman, she said. I don't think you're a villain. I think you were in a room with the lights off, and he told you the furniture was different. I had to swallow. I wish I'd turned the switch sooner. She lifted an eyebrow. You did. You're here. Most people don't knock. Most people stay quiet. Most people disappear. Most people fear being labeled. I had feared that, too. Feared the word homewrecker sliding onto my name like a sticker I'd never peel off. But sitting across from her, I felt something rearrange. What wrecks homes isn't the person who opens the door. It's the person who keeps locking it and pretending it's open. Can I ask? I started. Do you want to stay? With him. She looked at the photo again. I wanted to stay with the person in that picture. I don't know who the current tenant is. She swallowed like the tea had turned to sand. Maybe the person in that picture was always a rental. We didn't cry. There wasn't time for it. There was only the job of turning on lights. What do you want to do? I asked. Tell the truth, she said simply. And I want him to do it. I want him to confess in a way that isn't curated. How? I asked. She gave a small, practical smile that told me this wasn't her first structural repair. He loves a stage. He'll try to control the audience. So we picked the stage he can't manage. I blinked. A group setting? Wider, she said. He's in a community men's group, right? He posts about accountability every other Thursday. I nodded. I'd seen the hashtags, the quotes about integrity flanked by flexed biceps and leather journals. They have a meeting tomorrow night, she said. I know the facilitator. If I ask, she'll let me speak. And he'll have to sit there and listen. That's public, I said, feeling the word expand in the room. Not the whole town, she said. But the people whose opinions he uses as currency? Yes. I pictured it. Him on a metal folding chair, the circle of men who post about growth and grit, the facilitator with a clipboard. And her, calm, prepared, not dramatic, not cruel, just surgical. I felt that sedative clarity again. Revenge didn't have to be loud. It had to be accurate. What about work? I asked, careful not to step past her agency. Would this affect his job? She shook her head. He doesn't work at a place where HR handles personal life misdeeds. If he did, I still wouldn't go there. This is between us and the community he chooses for virtue points. He can keep his paycheck. What he can't keep is the mask. I nodded, awe detangling itself from my shame. I'd come prepared to detonate. She was planning an unveiling. Precision wins. What do you need from me? I asked. Your presence, she said. And your folder. And for you to say exactly one sentence if he tries to call you a liar. Only one. I imagined the sentence. I could taste its clean edges. What sentence? She looked me in the eye. You'll know it when it's time. It will be the smallest one. Lies need paragraphs. The truth is a single line. We coordinated quietly. She'd message the facilitator. I'd sit in the back. We wouldn't corner him in private. We'd give him the courtesy of a room where he'd promised to be honest. If he wanted mercy, he could seek it from the people he took sermons from. She walked me to the door. Thank you for coming, she said, like I'd returned a casserole dish. I'm sorry for my part, I said. You didn't invite yourself, she replied. But you can escort yourself out. That matters. On the porch, the swing creaked as if in agreement. The sky had that midsummer glaze, too bright, everything too visible. Good. Let it all be visible. On my way down the steps, my phone buzzed. He'd broken through airplane mode like a vine through a crack. Please, his text read. Please don't make a scene. I looked around at the street, kids on bikes. A dog pulling a small woman down the sidewalk. A neighbor watering petunias. Life. Scene, I thought, is what you get when you put your life on a stage. He'd been doing that all along. I just hadn't known I was in the cast. I typed one sentence and hit send. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., men's group. No explanation. No elaboration. If he knew, he knew. If he didn't, he would. He called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. Then the messages started, each one a small lever attempt. I'm fragile. You're cruel. She'll break. We can fix this privately. I love you. I don't love you. I need help. You're making it worse. The entire lexicon of a person trying to fog the room before the mirror arrives. I put my phone face down on my passenger seat. This time, the gesture wasn't secrecy. It was refusal to be trained. The next 24 hours stretched like taffy, slow, sticky, elastic. He left 3 voicemails, 2 of which were crying, one of which was angry enough to be unfamiliar. I listened to the angry one once. The sentences were all curved. How could you? After everything I told you. You know how she gets. You're not blameless either. He threw every word spear in the basket. None of them stuck. I spent the afternoon writing. Not to him. To myself. I wrote what I wanted from my next version of love. I wrote that the next time someone said complicated, I'd hear cornered. That the next time someone used their sadness as a leash, I'd cut it. That when someone asked for understanding, I'd hand it over only if they submitted a blueprint at 6:45 p.m. the next day. I parked in a lot behind a community center with green vinyl chairs and a vending machine that made a sound like it was dying of a cold. The facilitator, tall, silver braid, eyes like she'd seen this before, met us at the door. She squeezed the wife's shoulder, glanced at me, glanced at the folder under my arm, and nodded like the universe had met its minimum safety requirement. Witnesses that we slipped in while the group arranged itself. He was already there, jeans, gray t-shirt, hair combed like he was auditioning for the role of recovering man. He saw us and went white, then red, then something like translucent. His mouth opened. The facilitator lifted a hand. Phone's off, she said to the room. The rules had begun. I sat in the back, shadowed by a bookshelf of self-help titles. The wife took a chair next to the facilitator. He sat opposite them, knee bouncing, fingers drumming, the percussion of panic. Tonight, the facilitator said, calm as a clean sheet of paper, we're talking about integrity and confession. We have 2 guests. One is the spouse of a member who is asked to say a few words. The room wasn't a courtroom, but it had that hum, expectation wrapped in etiquette. He lifted his head as if appealing to an invisible jury. Go ahead. The facilitator said to the wife. She stood. No paper, no theatrics. Just a person with a spine. We're on our anniversary week, she began. And I wish I were here for a different reason. She took a breath that steadied the room. I'm here because the person I married told me he was rebuilding trust while telling another woman he was divorced. I learned this yesterday. I invited her to tell me the truth. She did. She nodded toward me in the back. Heads turned. Not in hostility. More like, oh, the missing variable. He coughed, an objection swallowing itself. The facilitator lifted that hand again, a conductor managing tempo. I'm not here to accuse him, the wife continued. The evidence is in a folder. He knows it's true. I'm here to give him a final chance to do what he says he believes in. Confess, without asterisks. The room tightened, shoulders, jaws, grips on kneecaps. Men check each other for bravery the way some check pockets. He stood. It's not that simple, he blurted, proving every sentence she'd rehearsed. Confession never is, the facilitator said. But it is single. You either say the thing or you don't. Sit, please. Saturday, she turned to me. Would you mind reading the first page in that folder? The text transcript from April. I walked it forward like a relay baton. My knees didn't wobble. I read, clear, the 2-minute call where he said the word divorced. The room heard it. The word did what it always does, carved a line in the air. He tried again. We were functionally separated, he said to the circle, choosing a new adverb to hide behind. The facilitator shook her head like a patient teacher. Say it without adjectives. He looked at his hands. I lied, he said, not looking at anyone. I told her I was divorced. I wasn't. I'm married. I was seeing both of them. I used my mental health as an excuse. I tried to keep them apart so I could keep both. There it was. The sentence. His world rearranged around it. You could feel the thud as it landed in each man's chest. The ones who'd done similar and lied about the scale. The ones who hadn't but could have. And your wife? The facilitator asked gently. What do you want to say to her? He turned with that familiar small boy face he wears when cornered. I'm sorry, he said. I was scared. No, the wife said without cruelty. You were greedy. He flinched because the word fit. It was a garment cut exactly to his size. The facilitator looked at me. Do you want to say anything? I met his eyes for the first time. He looked stripped. No charm, no half smile, no sarcasm to manage the tone of the room. Just a person who had to sit in his own sentence. I said the sentence I knew before she even asked me for it. The smallest, cleanest line. I didn't know. Now I do. That was all. It was enough. Anything else would have fed his performance. Silence took a seat with us. It stayed there for a long time. Finally, the facilitator spoke, voice maternal without being soft. Here are your options, she said to him. Own it publicly to the people you've courted as a moral audience. This group, your online men's circle, your couple's friends, or leave with the understanding that staying in this community requires the kind of integrity you have not practiced. She turned to the wife. And you, what do you need? The wife didn't look at him. She looked at me. Would you be okay if I asked for one more thing? She said. Of course, I said. I want us to send the same message, she said, to the same list, his close friends, our mutuals, so the story isn't his to spin. Short, kind, factual, together. I nodded. I could feel the exact words forming. Words without salt, but with surgical edges. I thought of the index in my folder. I thought of how tidy truth could be when you stopped apologizing for its shape. Let's write it now, the facilitator said, so it doesn't trail into later. We did it right there, on a whiteboard. Of all places, the way you might plan a bake sale or a car wash. The wife spoke. I streamlined. The facilitator cut adjectives. The message we drafted. Hey all, we want you to hear this from us, not through whispers. We are separating. His name, told my name, in April that he was divorced. He was not. He pursued a relationship with her while still married to me. We've met and compared timelines. This note is not an invitation to pile on. It's an end to confusion. Please give both of us space to do the work each of us needs to do. Her name and my name, no rage. No drag. No stoning in the town square. Just the truth, sent by the two women who had been forced into the same room and decided to open a window instead of suffocate. He watched as we took a photo of the whiteboard for reference. He didn't object. Maybe he had finally found the floor of his integrity. Maybe he didn't think there would be any. Maybe he realized floors are mercy. They keep you from falling forever. The meeting ended like meetings end. Metal chairs scraping, men clearing their throats. Some offering half hugs to him, others deliberately not. One man with a beard like a weather report murmured to him, "Call me tomorrow, and don't lie." Another put a hand on the wife's shoulder with a respect I will remember until I forget my own name. Outside. The evening had that lavender scene between day and night, quiet threaded with crickets. The wife and I stood under a weak streetlight. Two people who would not be friends after this. We weren't built for each other, but who would share a kind of delicate, lifelong salute, the kind you give a person who held your hand steady while you stitched yourself up. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, I said. We both did the right thing, finally. Right isn't fun, she said, smiling wryly. It will be later, I said, not as a threat, but as a blessing. She tucked the folder under her arm. I'll file for legal separation tomorrow, she said. Not because of you. Because of the truth. I nodded. We didn't hug. That seemed honest that he was standing by his car when I walked to mine. He looked small. Not child small. Consequence small. I loved you, he said, as if that were a disinfectant. I love the version of you who tells the truth, I said. Turns out I didn't know him. He nodded once. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He didn't say another word. At 9 a.m. the next morning, she texted, Draft ready? I sent the final version of our joint message with our names at the bottom, like a tiny treaty that we hit send at noon, to a list we made shoulder to shoulder in a Google Doc. Her sister, his brother, their couple friends, my two friends who would definitely hear through the grapevine and deserve to hear from me. We sent the same message by text to people we knew preferred it that way. We posted a slightly anonymized version to our Instagram stories. We are separating. There was dishonesty. Please be kind. With comments turned off. This wasn't a public flogging. It was an informational bulletin. At 12:14, my phone started the percussion again. Pings, buzzes, vibrations I felt in my molars. I didn't open them yet. I went for a walk around the block. The air smelled like cut grass and a storm 3 miles away. At 1 o'clock, he posted to his men's group forum. It was a screenshot texted to me by a friend I didn't realize I still had. The post read, "I lied to my wife and another woman. I told one I was divorced when I wasn't. I used my mental health to avoid accountability. I am stepping back from this community to do the work I have avoided. Please support my wife and leave my name alone. Any anger you have belongs to me." I sat on a curb under a maple tree and felt a complicated thing. Relief, shame, vindication, grief. The relief wasn't because he'd confessed. It was because reality had finally caught up to the story I'd been living inside like a wrong-sized dress. The shame wasn't mine. It was residue. Vindication was sharp, like a lemon. Grief was the ocean, present even when you're not looking at it. At 3 o'clock, I opened the messages. My best friend wrote, "I'm proud of you. Also, I will key his car in my heart." Another friend, softer and more devout, sent a prayer and a soup recipe, because in her world soups solved what apologies couldn't. A mutual friend sent, "I had a feeling. Are you okay?" It wasn't helpful. It was honest. You need a mix. Two of his friends privately messaged to say they had thought he was off. One said, "Not surprised," which was oddly comforting. The problem had not been invisible. It had been denied. Two of her friends sent me gentle gratitude for the way we wrote the message. "You didn't smear," one said. "You didn't spare him either." That night, I slept for the first time in days. I woke without that iron band around my chest. I made coffee, and it didn't taste like medicine. I showered, and it didn't feel like washing off a bad dream I'd inevitably go back to. Then the fallout started to arrange itself in tidy little piles. Like the mail you sort after a vacation. Urgent, soon. Recycle. Urgent. He texted a long apology that was, for once, not an apology to avoid a consequence, but an apology carried into the consequence on purpose. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't mention reconciliation. He said, "I understand if you hate me." I didn't. Hate is too present tense. I had moved my furniture into another room. Soon, the wife sent a photo of the filed legal separation. No emojis, just the document. That image steadied me like a lighthouse, proof that institutional reality had caught up to narrative reality. Her note said, "Thank you for the folder." I replied, "You did the hardest part." Recycle. 3 messages from acquaintances who wanted details we hadn't provided. How long? How many times? Did you know about her? They tried to turn our joint clarity into a group chat. I didn't feed them. Silence is also a boundary. And then came a consequence I hadn't planned for because it had nothing to do with me. A post from his boss on the company's internal community board. I saw it only because a friend I didn't know worked with him sent a screenshot. It wasn't disciplinary. It was a take-what-you-need message to the team because he had requested a leave of absence. He cited personal responsibility and recovery work. I stared at that phrase, personal responsibility. The man had finally made eye contact with the phrase he'd been hashtagging. Would he hold it? I didn't know. That part wasn't my story anymore. What was my story was this. In the quiet that follows a good, clean confrontation, your body will try to invent new tasks because it's been living in emergency mode. It will tell you the house is still on fire. It will make you check the stove. It will make you draft new speeches, just in case. I let my body do that for several days. I let it make small lists it didn't need. Then, each time, I folded the list into squares and threw it away. Practice ending things. The online fallout trickled, less than we feared because we had fed it less. People want drama. They get bored by sentences that end in periods. He stayed off the grid for a week. During that week, the wife and I exchanged exactly 3 messages, the separation doc. Thank you for not attacking me. And on day 7, a final note that said, you free? We met at a coffee shop that looks like a set designer made it for a show called We Are Fine Now. Plants that didn't ask for too much. White cups, low music. We hugged this time, because you can add a hug to the end of the math once the numbers have been balanced. I have one more idea, she said, sitting. There was a sliver of mischief in her smile, the kind you earn. You might call it revenge. I call it documentation. I'm listening, I said, not anxious. Remember all those posts of his? The ones where he lifted quotes about honesty and humility. She slid her phone over with a collection. Men don't run from hard truths. Integrity is doing what you say. Confession is the beginning of courage. I remember, I said dryly. The man was a walking home goods sign. I'm going to print them, she said, delighted and deadpan. Frame them. Hang them in my new place. And when people ask, I'll say, these are the artifacts of lessons I paid for. They remind me to buy truth I can cash. I laughed. Not at him. At us. At the ridiculous, tender ways we salvage meaning from things that hurt. That's savage, I said, approving. It's boundaried, she corrected, and sipped her coffee. On day 10, he posted a longer confession to his public profile. Not to the whole world. No names, no drama, but not to a locked room either. He wrote, I lied. I cheated. I called selfishness sadness and asked for mercy I hadn't earned. I'm sorry to the 2 women I hurt. Don't DM them. DM me if you need to say anything. He turned comments off and his DMs on. He redirected the river. The next day, I blocked him. Not out of anger. Out of completion. You block scammers. You block spam. You block patterns your future self doesn't need to see. In a way, it was my last kindness to him. I took away the spectacle of me watching. And here's where the revenge, if you want to call it that, finalized itself like a signature drawing. A month later, he reached out to a mutual, one of the men from the circle with the weather report beard. He asked, apparently, how to win back trust. The mutual replied, as was relayed to me, by not aiming to win anything, by not making their forgiveness your project, by not making your growth a sermon you force them to sit through. He was quiet after that, the mutual said. He did the dishes of his own mess without inviting us to admire his technique. It was not dramatic. It was justice. And it wasn't mine to direct anymore. As for the wife, she moved. She got a small apartment with morning light like a blessing that didn't feel religious. She bought the frames. She hung the quotes. She went to a book club. She changed her hair. Simple alchemy. Rearranged the outside to reflect the inside's new geography. As for me, I did a petty thing that wasn't actually petty. I took myself back to that grocery store aisle where he'd asked me which ice cream I liked. I bought both flavors. I ate them on my couch, solo taste test, and laughed when I realized I didn't even like one of them. The point wasn't ice cream. It was being asked. So I asked myself and answered. During those weeks, 1,000 little moments made a quilt of closure. The one that stitched the last square was small enough to miss. I was at a crosswalk. The light changed. A car waved me on, friendly. I started walking, then stopped to tie my shoe because the lace had come loose. I tied it without panic in the middle of the crosswalk and continued walking. No one honked. No one hurried me. For months I'd been sprinting mid-crossing because I'd trained myself to believe I was in the way. This time, I took my time. That was it. The revenge was never about humiliating him. It was about restoring my pace. Of course, not everyone applauded. One of his friends, the kind who think nuance is weakness, posted a sub-tweet about people who burn it all down instead of working it out. I didn't respond. We hadn't burned anything down. We'd turned on the lights and left the room. Fire and electricity both make you see, but only one is designed to be sustainable. Months later, he sent a letter through the facilitator because that's the only channel we'd agreed was acceptable. It said, essentially, thank you for not exploding. Thank you for not letting me keep both. Thank you for the sentence. He meant mine. I didn't know. Now I do. The smallest knife. I wrote back via the facilitator. Do the work even when no one is watching. Especially then. I don't know if he will. You never get to know the end of someone else's story. You only get to fix the page you're on. And the page I was on, finally, was blank and bright. I learned that revenge, when it's clean, looks less like flames and more like glass. You hold it up and let the light pass through. If someone cuts themselves, it's because they ran into it. He said he was divorced. He wasn't. He said he was depressed. He might have been. He used one word to excuse the other. That was the fuse. I carried it quietly until it reached the truth, and then I set it down. We didn't blast the town square. We invited him to admit what he'd done in the community where he'd been choreographing his best self. He confessed. She filed papers. I blocked him. We sent a note. We shut a door without slamming it. The satisfying part wasn't his embarrassment. It was the absence of mine. The piece afterward didn't sound like applause. It sounded like my own footsteps, regular again. When people ask me if I regret what we did, I ask them a question back. Do you regret turning on a light when you realize you've been stumbling? Because that's all this was. We stopped using our shins to learn where the furniture was. He told a lie. I believed it until I couldn't. Then I believed myself. If you've ever been gaslit into doubting your own eyes, let this be your nudge to flip the switch. If you want more true stories where the truth doesn't whisper, it rings, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. When did you finally choose the light over the lie?